Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Anthony Hinnon, Pennsylvania reporter for the Center Square. Joining me today is the Center Square's Pennsylvania editor, Kristen Smith. Kristen, we've had some action lately in the State House, and they were looking to bump up the presidential primary for Pennsylvania, but it hasn't happened. What exactly is going on here?
Well, it's yet the latest round of ping pong in the state legislature. It seems like after a rather complicated and contested process, we have a bill that was passed in the Senate that several months ago, by the way, passed in the Senate that would move the primary date to the third Tuesday in March, which would be March 19th, put us in line with Illinois, Florida, Arizona, and Ohio. The reason being is Pennsylvania is a pretty big swing state. We've been kind of pivotal in the last couple of elections, and so lawmakers say we should have a bigger influence on the primary candidate. And so there are supporters in the House for this. And in fact, Malcolm Kenyatta did a bill recently that would have done the same thing, because there's concerns also that the current date, which is the fourth Tuesday in April, conflicts with Passover. So it's not that there wasn't bipartisan support. There absolutely was. However, Republicans in the House were frustrated, particularly that they wanted to do this and they wanted to do it so quickly. We have general elections next month. We have primaries for the presidential race in April of 24. And even though that's a significant amount of time away for county election offices, it is not. They're already making plans for 2024. And so to kind of change it now would be really difficult for them. And they've said as much to lawmakers. The other interesting wrinkle in this is that, as I said, Malcolm Kenyatta had his own bill, and the House decided to run both the Senate and their version of the bill. But in their version, in the Senate version, which, based on procedure, could have gone to the governor's desk faster, they amended in very late at night, like just before midnight, this big amendment that would add all kinds of new voting provisions, 3-day ballot canvassing, a voter ID, all these things that are controversial but well liked by both sides, just threw it in there. And as you can imagine, it generated a lot of controversy. And so at the end of the day, that bill, which had, interestingly enough, a lot of things that lawmakers wanted, it failed spectacularly. I think the vote was 177 to 26. Yes. And so that's all 101 Republicans, 76 Democrats, even House Speaker Joanna McClinton. They were all like, no, we can't do this. So at the end of the day, we have one bill, 1664 in the House, that says let's move the primaries up to March 19th. And now it's in the Senate. And so we're kind of back to the same question that we were at several months ago when the Senate said, yeah, let's do March 19th.
So does, I believe critics described it as midnight malarkey. Does this show that, are we any further on this? We've at least rejected one alternative here. Or is it still there's a lot of work to be done before we get a decision either way?
This is a hard one to read the tea leaves on, because theoretically you would expect that the Senate would be okay with this, because it's essentially the same idea that they sent to the House, several months ago. Now, I imagine that because we are so close to elections, that there might be some feelings about doing it now, approving it now. And so we'll have to see. I did reach out to Senate sources to find out what they thought. I haven't heard back yet. So, because this is a very developing story, it just happened several hours before recording. And midnight malarkey is exactly what the phrase that a lot of people used on the floor. For people who may not be legislative historians, there was a huge scandal back in the House in the mid 2000s, where under the cover of darkness, as they love to say, just in the middle of the night, lawmakers voted to give themselves a pay raise. This was a huge deal. Lots of people lost their seats over it, and new rules were put in place that meant that you couldn't do voting past a certain time. I want to say it was 11 o'clock at night. They often skirt those rules, particularly around budget time, but this time, they did it and they added this amendment in. And so it really drew a lot of comparisons in lawmakers' mind that this is what we're doing again. So they spent a lot of time on the floor this morning reminding each other of all the times that each party has done this. And so that was what the bulk of the discussion really was, honestly, was blaming each other for how this unfolded. But at the end of the day, we're kind of right back to where we started. All eyes are on the Senate. And quite frankly, at this point, it's anyone's guess of whether this will be something that they decide that, hey, let's send it to the governor. I would say, given the pushback from county officials, that it's no longer as popular in the Senate to do this now as it was before.
Never a dull moment here. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Kristen Smith, this is Anthony Hinnon. Please subscribe, and thanks for listening.